about 350 yards up. He's going to hit about a 500, I expect, don't you think?
That's the beach, man. Oh, Charlie, I'm hot today.
Let's go while we're young.
A looper?
A looper. You know, the caddy, looper.
Hey, welcome back to the Chasing Daylight, everybody. We have a special interview series. We made a commitment to you guys to bring some more Vegas connections out onto the show. And Joe's sitting here with me for this episode, and we have a special guest, Mr. Darden Nicks, the head greenskeeper out at Wildhorse Golf Club. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
So how do you get into agronomy as far as a golf course? Was it a golf passion that led to it, or was it an agronomy passion that got you into golf?
I think there's a lot of different reasons you get into it. For me, my dad told me to go get a real job after rogan wheat and detasseling corn, so I decided to push a lawnmower in 1991 at New Albany Country Club. So that's how I got into it, and then I just kept doing that when I was in college at Elon. And my junior year in college, my accounting professor said, you know, you can do whatever you want in life with accounting. And I thought, well, that's cool because I don't want to be inside.
Yeah.
So after I graduated there, I went to NC State in Raleigh for turf grass and basically just did the 2-year program in a year and a half from all my credits that transferred over, and I just stayed in the business. So it was just one of those things that growing up, it was just kind of one thing led to another and ended up in the business and stayed in it.
So is that where you're originally from, is North Carolina?
Originally from Virginia,
Okay.
and then we moved to Ohio so my dad could run the egg farm. It was the largest self-contained egg farm in the world at the time. He was the assistant general manager and did the accounting. So we grew up out in the middle of nowhere, basically, on a farm and running around and doing all that stuff, playing baseball, and then it was finally like, hey, you need to go do something.
Yeah. Like most people's dads.
Right, yeah.
So when did you know, at what point were you like, the golf course side of things is what piqued your interest the most?
Probably my junior year in college. I worked at a Donald Ross in Alamance Country Club in North Carolina in Burlington. And the guys that went there were like, yeah, if you want to do this, you got to go to school for it. And I was like, you have to go to school to cut grass?
Right.
And they were like, yeah, you go do this, this, and this. And so I did it, and it worked out.
What would you think, in your opinion as a greenskeeper, what do you think is the most unknowledgeable point of what you do for the public? Like, what doesn't the public get that you do?
Well, I think it's a lot of things, just like I asked both of you guys what you did. It's just a matter of getting to know people and just saying hello, how are you, and treating everybody the same. But to answer your question, I think they just probably do not comprehend the agronomics and the science behind what it takes to provide a certain product with the demands placed on the golf business today.
Yeah.
Everything's changed in 40 years for all of us and in every industry and every business. So
do you mean like people see Augusta and they expect that at every course?
yeah, somewhat. Some people understand, but even still, even at your higher end clubs, there's going to be that guy or that guy that at our place that dresses like he wants to be at one of those places, but he's not, and he still wants to call or complain about this or that.
Yeah.
And it's just life. I mean, it's nothing specific really that makes people that way, other than just everyone's different and you can't control what other people do or say. You can only control how you respond and react.
Right.
So
How much of the complaints that people lodge on the courses is actually because of the crew? Like, it's what's out of your control, basically, that people bitch about?
I would say 2%. Just for example, like today, the lady called and wanted to know why the street sweeper didn't get the pine straw off the street between the golf course, not on the golf course. And someone else called to say that a pine cone or a branch fell down behind their house on a certain number, but they're not even on the course per se, but they live next to it, so they like to just let you
blame
know.
you.
So you have to attend to all those things and talk to them and understand that they don't really comprehend what you do or don't do, and just kind of have to take care of it the best you can in the situation.
Yeah. So I know you've been tons of places. Did you come out here for Wildhorse or?
Yes, I was in Ohio at a 36-hole semi-private club. It was family owned, and they were gonna sell one of the 18 holes. And one of my friends recommended that I come out here, and so I took this job. But I've been all over.
You've been all over, right?
Yeah, I've been at Kiowa, Cacique, Governor's Club, a lot of high-end private places in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida, and then even in Columbus. It was a nice place, but they were going to sell one of the 18 holes, and it was just time to go. And up there in the Midwest in the wintertime, they shut down.
Right, yeah.
And it was just an opportunity, and we took a chance, and it's worked out fairly well so far.
Yeah, Vegas is awesome. I mean, one of the places that I want to play the most that I haven't been to is North Carolina. I tell these guys all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Bucket list state for golf for me is North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
How would you, I mean, it's so different, right? Like, just turf conditions, ground. I mean, compared to there, like the struggle out here is insane compared to that, right? Does that place like kind of take care of itself in a way?
Each region of the country has their own issues and problems. I remember specifically in North Carolina, I mean, one of the first years I was at the Governor's Club, we had Hurricane Fran come through and knock down 10,000 trees, and that's in the middle of the state in Raleigh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, out here, what I like to tell people, and some people laugh at it, but it's when you fly out here or drive out here, until you get here, what do you see?
Yeah, all desert.
So now there's something else here. There's people and grass and trees. How did that happen? None of this would be here without water or money and technology to sustain that. So it's really interesting when you look at the different parts of the world. Yeah, there's stuff out here that's easier than other parts of the country, but I've said this a couple times in the last year. I think overall this is probably the most difficult place to grow grass just because of the lack of water. And you have to have water with whatever you do in life.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, you have to have water.
You need water to live.
Right. So that, to me, so far in the 30 years I've been doing that, I think this is the toughest area to do that in.
Yeah, I believe it.
Is it common for greenskeepers to hop around a lot?
It is somewhat. I mean, you have certain people that have been at places like Dale at TPC. He's been there almost 30 years. He'll probably retire there, and he's one of the top superintendents in the country. So, but in general, the average lifespan is 5 years for a superintendent, and then they'll move on for whatever reason to another place. That's just the statistical averages.
Yeah, I mean, that happens with everything.
Oh, yeah. I was
People
just-
gotta move, the challenges.
Oh, yeah.
So how long have you been at Wildhorse now?
October will be 3 years, October 18th.
So what you came into, are you surprised at the course? Was it you were like, wow, this is going to take a lot. This is a lot of work, or man, I love the canvas that we have here.
Yeah, both. I mean, it was both sides of that. It was, yes, it's going to take a lot of work, and I think you just have to present the message to your clients and owners that no matter where you go or what you want to do, it's going to take at least 5 years, because nothing grows overnight.
Right.
And to come in the conditions like that, it's okay, let's make sure we try to get grass everywhere we can where the people want to see grass. And your main priority are greens, tees, and then fairways. So almost 3 years into it, we have grass on all the greens, tees, and most of the fairways, except down at the bottom of the hill on number 12. There's a few more spots, but overall, we're gradually making progress, and I think you have to just pick out like one bite at a time. How do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time.
Yeah.
So it can get overwhelming, but you just have to realize that this is what it is and this is what it's going to take. But most importantly, you have to convey that message to the people and get them to believe in what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the horse, right? That's where I started playing golf 3 years ago, and that's like where I started playing, you know, because
Nice.
it was one of the closest places to my house, and, you know, reasonably priced, not, you know, and I think it's just a blast to play. I think it's so fun, and it can give you so much trouble, but if you play it right, it's going to reward you. I always tell these guys, like, I love the horse, man, and it's such a vibe there.
And what Joe and I come from different eras. We both grew up here, right? And so he is more memorable for the course as it is now. You've played it mostly how it is now.
Yeah.
I grew up, you know, I've been in this valley for a long time, but in the early 90s when, I mean, that place was lush and pure.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's kind of different, you know, it's different. And I see it now, and I love the layout, and I love that area of the city. But have you seen old pictures of it? And do you hear a lot about people talk about the way it used to be?
Oh, sure.
And I mean, I know it's managed by the City of Henderson, right? The city owns the
Right. They own it, and then Elite Golf manages that one. Yeah.
And when they took it over, I mean, a lot happened as far as money goes for maintaining it. And I think what you guys have done has been unbelievable.
Yeah, amazing. You guys have done great work there.
But I have a hard time not remembering the course, how it was back then. And it's been a change for me to try and understand what you guys are doing out there with the limited funds that you have. It's a fantastic golf course, and it's got a ton of history. Where do you guys see the course in 5 years?
We're Nish and Chris, two very amateur golfers on a quest to play the top 100 courses in the UK and Ireland, after Chris set this challenge on a drunken Saturday night in my kitchen. Join us on our frequently humorous journey of a lifetime as we grapple with the logistical and financial challenge of playing some of the best courses in the world, as well as grappling with our games, because let's face it, it's never just about playing. Sometimes the score matters too. Listen to the Top 110 Golf Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
I see it in 5 years as consistently getting better and maybe being, you know, one of the top 15 in Henderson. I mean, which is, there's only 40 courses in Vegas so far. So I'm competing with my neighbor Steve, and then we try to compete with these guys up here, but we just, with the funds, you cannot compete.
Right.
So and back in the day with what you were saying, Matt, is there was overseed everywhere, wall to wall. So as the water restrictions come in, with the Lake Mead levels dropping, and as we're all trying to be conservationists, those items come into play. Could they afford to overseed everywhere, wall to wall? Well, they probably could, but is it the right thing to do right now, given what's going on with the environmental conditions and the water restrictions at that place? Probably not. In the 90s, you're looking at probably spending an extra $250,000 to overseed it, and that would include your seed, maybe your water, and then your chemicals to take care of that grass because the water is so poor. So with the high salt levels in the water, even though we're using recycled water from the city, you're still going to be having issues with diseases that come up from that, and then the traffic and wear, and then your extra expenses for water. So you're looking at today's cost, it would probably cost $380,000 or $400,000 more than what we're spending to overseed fairways. And that's not even counting roughs. To get it back to those original pictures where they did the turf grass reductions and everything was nice and neat, and the desert areas and all the plants were trimmed and they were brand new and there weren't any weeds in the and they had 28 people taking care of those areas. And now 25, 30 years later, okay, great idea, but now it costs a lot of money to still maintain those areas, but now we have 8 people instead of 28
Right.
people. I mean, you can just go in the shop and count the lockers that they had, and you know that back in, and it was the same way everywhere. I mean, golf was booming
Right.
Yeah.
after Reagan and Clinton, and then Clinton started. I mean, in the late 80s, 90s, I mean, they overbuilt golf courses in this country, not necessarily Wildhorse, but I mean, if you go to Myrtle Beach, I was there for a while in that area, and a lot of those places closed down, and they sold the land to build condos because it's more profitable to have people come on summer vacation than it is to spend $25-$45 a round for golf
Yeah.
Right.
and to maintain it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you're dealing with limited crew, very old equipment, right? And then piping that isn't even
Right,
ran
yeah.
properly, or drainage areas that aren't connected to anything. you know?
Yeah, it's and you find that everywhere you go. It's not just here. I mean, those things, and so when they were building or rebuilding in the 80s, 90s, those things happened. I mean,
Yeah.
people just did it as quick as they could.
Right,
And I'm
yeah.
sure there's probably houses like that too.
Oh yeah, out here.
Oh, that's
there
we
is
were
for
we
sure.
were just talking about that. I
Yeah.
mean, the rush for homes and
Yeah.
just build them as quick as you can.
Right.
We'll fix the problems later, or we won't because we don't know
Right.
about them. Until they're long gone, the Pulte warranty expires, and yeah, we deal with that. It's just, the city is crazy. One of the things that the last episode of our weekly show we did, I was saying that Vegas has kind of lost its luster as a destination resort because you have places like Sand Valley and Cabot and Bandon, even Palm Springs.
Sure.
So 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't as many people in the valley. We didn't have the water restrictions we had now. It was really easy to pump all that water in and get those courses green. People came out here, they played golf, they talked about it. But now I'm seeing a lot more courses going away from overseeding. Do you think that it's financially driven?
I think it is a twofold answer to that. I think some of it may be financially, and some of it may be the perception of environmental conservation, which in totality, I mean, we only use 6% of the water here, which it is what it is. It's not that,
Right.
I don't think it's that much, but when people start looking at it outside the business, they don't understand what we do, then it can become a big deal or a bad perception. So, and the other side to being here is we're kind of in that transition zone. And that goes all the way across the country. If you draw a line, just say I-40, it goes all the way to Wilmington, North Carolina. Their warm season grasses will go dormant in the wintertime and turn brown. So they've been painting fairways or using turf colorants, is what I like to call them, for a while now. And I think that's fine. I just think you have to educate the people flying in here. I mean, when they fly in, and one of the first things I did there was I wrote an article and put it on the counter in the golf shop that says dormant, not dead. I mean, there's
Right.
people fly in and go, oh, it's dead. They're not watering it. So, and you see those, you can go on these review things now that I've learned how to do this and see what people say. And it's just like, okay, yeah, well.
Uneducated.
So we have to try to mitigate that, though. I think that's our responsibility as superintendents or general managers or head golf pros. I think that we have to be on the same page, and it's my job to teach them as much as I can of why does this happen? Why does that do that? Well, because it's a different grass. It's a warm season grass. The overseed is a cool season grass.
Right.
And then you can get into the science of it, and I'll do some of that a little bit, but I mean not to bore people with it, but I mean there's the warm season grass has 4 carbon chains in it, and it basically breathes internally. The cool season grass has 3, and it breathes externally. You can look at it as like an engine on a car, where the warm season grass is like an engine that's cooled internally with a radiator, and the cool season grass is like the old time cars where it was air cooled from the outside air before they had the radiators and things like that on the automobiles.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I tell someone, "Oh, I'm playing Wildhorse this weekend," or "Are you going to play Wildhorse?" "Oh, how's it look?" I always try and just, people don't see. I mean, we're like golf nerds, right? Like we're super hardcore golfers. So to me, Wildhorse is just, you can be so creative there. And there's no other place in town that gives you those kind of shots that you can get there. We don't get grass that's dormant and hard everywhere, so it's going to run out. And it presents challenges that we don't get to see all the time, so people should embrace that. Because if you go somewhere else, it could be that way.
Right, no doubt.
You know? So it's educating you. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I was telling Joe that you fly into Texas in the wintertime, the whole state is brown.
Right.
There's no green grass there because that's what they do. And I've been a proponent of, hey, don't do the overseed, just let it go dormant.
Right.
Our cool season is small in comparison to the rest of the country. I don't mind playing a dormant fairway for 3 months. Like I said, we play in shorts in January and February most of the time. Right. So having some dormant grass 3 out of 4 months out of the year, I don't think would change the Vegas perception of golf if in that warm weather, the turf is better and more established.
Yeah.
And so let people know the difference between overseeding and not overseeding and the benefits of either direction.
Well, basically, the benefits of overseeding for where we are, because our warm season greens are an older, like you said, you were here, you've been around forever. So one of the original warm season grasses for greens was 328, which is basically a cut below the 419 or the rough. They just took the genes and crossed it over and made another cultivar of Bermuda grass. And there's even more than that now. They're called ultra dwarfs. So some of the newer places will have an ultra dwarf Bermuda grass green. And basically they're just genetically modifying the turf grass plant to a lower height where it only grows so high. So there's not many places out here that have an ultra dwarf Bermuda grass. I think it's Stallion Mountain. Maybe has Champion Bermuda grass greens.
I think so, yeah. I think you're right.
But other than that, I don't know anyone else out here that has that. But so with the way that 328 Bermuda grows, in the wintertime, it's gonna start shutting down on its own. Not necessarily completely go dormant, but it could. But there's not as much leaf density per square inch as it would be if it was an ultra dwarf. So it's going to wear out and thin out. So to overseed the greens, you have to, on that cultivar of Bermuda grass, because it'll thin out and just be completely dirt by the time you run all the rounds through it and the traffic and the wear on it. So for the greens, specifically for what the Bermuda grass I have, is it needs to be overseeded out here because of that. So as far as tees go, as the Wildhorse tees, the new tees after they rebuild it are very small. It's kind of the same thing. And it just gives you that definition on the tees and the greens with the cool season overseed. And that's just basically a ryegrass.
Yeah.
That will check out when it gets warm. And they call it transitioning, and you go back to Bermuda in the spring and the summer. So does that answer your question a little bit?
Absolutely.
I know it can get kind of confusing.
Oh, no, I'm geeking out right now, so it's fine.
You'll have to stop me.
No.
Yeah.
Do you think courses even recoup the money that they spend on overseeding?
There's not a lot of courses that make a profit in the golf business.
Yeah.
High-end country clubs do not. Most of those are 501Cs, and they can only report a certain amount of revenue anyway for taxes. But you're looking at, even Valley High downtown, they don't overseed anymore. And Donahue does an excellent job with the turf colorants. So they're always making a lot of money.
Yeah, that's right on the strip, too.
I would say, and we made some money last year for Wildhorse for the first time in a while, but
Nice.
I don't think that in this area, I'm not 100% sure, but I would say it's probably not right now. I mean, maybe last year because it was a different year with COVID and everything and more people were golfing. Maybe they did, but I would say overall in general, I would say no.
Okay, so we had a couple weeks ago a crazy patch of weather come through. In 2020, we had no monsoons, and the monsoon season is mid-July to mid-August, where you get those southern tropical storms that come up, and it just dumps water on us. The afternoon thunder showers, right? We didn't have any of that last year, and then this year it came early, and it was a combination of heat, humidity, and water. And some of the courses just got destroyed. And we're seeing a lot of the Instagram posts. We've been talking about it. You know, Sienna got leveled, Lakes course out of Prim. I mean, they're just fighting it. So what happened to where how that happened? What was the science behind these courses that got beat up? What happened?
I would say in general, I don't know Sienna. I know Prim. I know they specifically had an issue with one of their pump stations on one of the courses. But what will happen in general with that weather pattern for places that have cool season grasses, that like up here on the hilltop, is you're looking at some pretty good disease pressure from Pythium blight, brown patch. So all those things, and these guys up here do a great job. They got money to take care of that, and they know those patterns are coming or whatever like that. But as far as the other two courses on the warm season grasses, you could still get some of that possibly, but I would think that weather pattern would traditionally trend more towards hurting the courses that are all cool season grasses, like the people that have bent grass greens. I know some people had some issues with bent grass greens around town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's really because of that humidity and heat and all the water at one time, is going to create those issues.
And that's just giving an environment when it's normally not there.
Correct. That was the first time I'd seen it rain here in the summer.
Yeah, normally it comes down.
Yeah, we had an earthquake one summer. I was like, okay,
yeah,
where are we?
Yeah, for sure. We had some guy that we know say that he believed it to be the turf conditions. Like up there, on the west side, that's all hard rock.
Because the ground
can't soak up the rain, so it sits on top and kills the grass.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, again, we go back to my original statement. When you fly out here and drive out here, what do you see? So then you throw on top of that conditions that are traditionally in the southeastern United States for 90 days plus out here on that. And if you have any weak link in any of your programs, whether it be irrigation, chemicals, anything like that, you can have an issue pop up like that in hours.
Yeah, that's the thing out here. We have such random weather.
Oh, yeah. It's wild. So with Wildhorse, that water came down. Is that like a blessing for you guys? You're like,
oh, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, see, so the guy before me planted another warm season grass out there called paspalum, which is high in salt tolerant, a high salt tolerant grass. So there's patches of that out there as well. But yeah, any fresh rain for us specifically is a blessing for sure, and you can see it within hours.
Yeah.
And why is that though? Why is that a blessing there?
It's fresh water. It's clean.
Yeah.
There's no salt in it. It's probably lower pH, and most likely it does have a lower pH. So that in itself, when you change the percent hydrogen in water and you lower it, which a lot of us try to do because it's such a high pH out here, even from the recycled water, is that helps bring out the nutrients in the soil that are already there, and it flushes the sodium and salts through the canopy in the soil, and the grass just is like, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you go on a fast.
Yeah.
Like a human.
Yeah.
If you quit
like
eating,
a detox.
If you quit eating French fries and bread and sugar, it might suck for a little while, but then in 3 days you feel better.
Oh yeah, that's me right now. I'm down 22 pounds this year.
Yeah, so it's similar to that, to try to explain it to people that don't understand, but there's nothing that can replace fresh water.
Yeah.
So, talk about poana. All right. Poana is a grass that flourishes on the coast. And out here, it's a bad thing. I know when I was spending a lot of time out at Boulder Creek, I was getting some education from them that poana is a grass that out here, it can thrive, but it's not good for the course because it like takes over.
Sure.
And it's nothing that you can spray. It's got to be pulled from the roots, right?
Yeah, it's a cool season grass. It's a bluegrass, and I think there's 20 3 different cultivars of Poa annua. It's POA and then ANNUA. It's basically Latin for bluegrass, or that's what they call it now. So I think they're specifically talking to putting green surfaces and bent grass. If you get Poa annua, we'll get some in our overseed on the Bermuda grass, but there's really nothing that we can do where we are to mitigate that, and it's not that big of a deal at Wildhorse. But when you get to some of these high-end places that are getting it in their greens over years, there is some new technology out now that there's some trials going on in the area where there are some products that are working on that will specifically eradicate that. I don't think from my travels around town that it's that huge of a deal that I've seen, but I've seen it bad in other areas of the country for sure.
I know one of the reasons Rio did their remodel and redid all their greens was because it was taken over.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, and that can happen for sure. Yeah, so
No, so why, you said it's a cool weather grass. So what happens to that grass in the summertime out here if you get a course that has basically an infection where it's taken over? What does that do to the greens?
it'll melt out and it'll go quiescent, or it doesn't really some of it can die, but quiescent's like what the Bermuda grass does in the wintertime. It'll check out and you'll think, oh, okay, it's gone. Well, once the plant like that starts to die, it starts producing seed heads, and then those seed heads fall down, and then they get tracked with mowers and people and things like that, and then the next year it's even a bigger problem, and it just gradually over 5, 10, 15 years becomes an issue. I mean, even Muirfield in Dublin, Chad, they redid their greens because of it. But there are some new things coming out on the chemistry side that are promising for those issues. So I think in the next 10 to 20 years, those that can afford that, you won't see that. And I think Rio would be a place that can afford that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that other grass. Is that the grass that the greens are at Club at Sunrise?
The Paspalum.
Paspalum?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Now, those greens, they're the only place in town that have those on the greens right now, right? As far as you know?
As far as I know, I think so, yeah.
Why aren't more courses going to that? Because those greens, I mean, we even say it.
They look fake.
They look fake.
Yeah.
It's a really pretty looking grass. It's very, from what I read about it, it's a hardy, doesn't require a lot of water. Do you see more courses looking at that as an alternative, or not so much?
I personally wouldn't necessarily choose that as a putting surface. I mean, I've seen it because I've seen it in Florida. It grows so fast. There were some private clubs in Florida. They would go out, they would double cut, roll in the morning, and then go out after lunch and walk mow them again.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Right, because it just grows that fast. For where he is and what he's doing, I think it's great. The other side to that is when you go now, okay, we want to rebuild greens. I mean, you're looking at $30,000 times 18.
Yeah.
And then if you want new irrigation around it, add another 10 or 12,000. So now you're up to 40,000 or something plus times 18. And then you want a putting green, chipping green. So I think when Scott did that at Sunrise, it was probably a great move on his part for what they have now and what their clientele is for that area. I think it was a really great move for them. I don't know that I see that becoming a trend here for putting surfaces, but maybe fairways and tees. I don't see why you couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, like he planted some of that at Wildhorse before he left, and there's patches on 8, 12, and some of the putting greens, which is a little tricky now to manage because now I have that grass plus the Bermuda grass in the summertime, and they don't tolerate the same mowing heights or react the same when you do different cultural practices like verticutting or something like that. So, but to answer your question, no, I don't know that I would see that happening right here, mainly because of the cost and the fact that if you can afford to do that, you're probably going to go with either a superior bent grass or an ultra dwarf Bermuda grass.
Yeah, they were in an unusual circumstance there where they had to basically gut the whole entire place.
Yeah, no doubt. No, but it does look good. In the wintertime, he's kept them green.
Yeah.
So
they're hard to read. Very
so hard to
read.
read.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Nothing looks the same.
Yeah.
You know,
Just know it's going to go towards the ditch.
Right, yeah, exactly.
everything goes to the ditch.
Yeah, for sure.
So is that a fallacy as far as grass grows to a certain way?
No, it's not. I mean, you can see it, and what those if you look back at the whole entire picture of the canopy, it's called dysplasia, and that's where some of the grass will be darker and lighter, and it'll most likely be going down to which way the water flows. I mean, some of it's sunlight, but most of it's like, okay, if you have a redan or a double-tiered green, most of the time everything on top of the green from that ridge down is going to look dark to you when you're at the bottom, but when you're on top looking down, it's light, and that means that the ball
Growing that way.
right, that it's growing down towards whichever way the water flows off of that surface.
Makes sense.
Inside.
So I had a
reading.
friend a long time ago tell me there's no grain in Vegas. Because you go somewhere. I was just on a trip to Georgia. We played in Georgia and Alabama. There's grain there. the ball, you know, if you're putting uphill in grain, it is a nightmare. Downhill against the grain, lightning fast. We don't see that a lot out here. Is there grains in the greens in Vegas?
Oh, sure. Yeah, specifically on the warm season grasses, there's grain, all kinds of it, yeah.
That
And that's-
manipulates the ball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we don't have much topography at Wildhorse, so I tell everyone to putt it hard and aim at the cup. I mean, you know, we get down to 5, maybe 6 a little bit, but other than that, I mean,
Yeah, it
maybe
doesn't break
1.
a ton out there.
No, so you just hit it firm and aim towards the cup there. But when you get into bent grasses on the greens, you can get a little bit of that, but not too much here. And
Yeah.
the cultural practices that those places do that have bent grasses are going to keep them out of it, keep them out of having grain issues with bent grass.
Yeah.
But it's mostly the warm season grass on the greens is a hardier, the root system and the secondary roots are more firmer and thicker than bent grasses because it's more of a wiry type of a grass. So that's where that grain comes from, is that, and you just have to continue to cut it and spike it, or verticut it is what we call.
So in the summertime, aim at the cup. In the wintertime, pay more attention? Is that what you're saying?
You betcha.
Have you seen the old routing at Wildhorse?
Yes.
Which routing do you like better? The old routing or how it is now?
I've never played the old routing.
Just from pictures.
I think the older routing was probably, the original one was probably what it was truly meant to be by the architects.
Yeah.
The new routing has come into its own, but I mean, so 9 was 18, right?
Yeah.
So that's your finishing hole, and it's one of the toughest holes in Vegas
Yeah.
One of my favorite holes in town.
because you got water on the right, left, and then from the back tee, you can't see. If you've never been there, you don't know that lake might not
Right,
be
on the right.
Yeah.
Or long either.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think originally that's what it was meant to be. So that was probably the best option, but it is what it is now. So we have to make it the best that it is now.
Any plans to bring 9 back to 18?
Not that I know of.
No? That was such a good closing hole.
How much of that like historical stuff is like around in archives over there?
I've got just pictures and maps and things like
Yeah.
that. I mean, you have to go with all the leaks I've had. I've gone through and looked like what was it? What did they do? And even in the irrigation system now, we've had to go in and change it. I'm like, why is this box saying number 10 or whatever, and it's on 11 or it's 2 and it's on 12?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. I was like, you should put number 1 on 1
Right.
and put it in the computer as number 1. So, and all that can be changed, and it's in the process of being changed, and it's not that huge of a deal. But yeah, I do look in the irrigation room often.
I mean, there's just so
For
much
old
stuff
maps
that
and-
happened there.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Such a cool place.
Is there ever any issues with the frisbee golfers and the golfers?
No, not at all, really. It's actually worked out pretty good. So they'll go off the back 9, the disc golfers. You can't say frisbee.
I'm sorry. The disc
Yeah,
golfers.
disc
Right?
golfers.
No. I get caught up seeing that all the time. Actually, that's a big business.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you see him at Sunset Park
yeah.
all the time. It's crazy.
Well, Wildhorse is one of their biggest events of the year, right?
Yeah, in February. So
Yeah.
like, we would compare that event to the Memorial at
Yeah.
Muirfield
Wow.
for disc golf.
Yeah. Wow.
Right, on its own scale. And it is a big deal. I mean, when people can come out, they follow them. Some of those guys, one of the guys just signed a contract for $10 million for 10 years.
Wow.
wow.
Right? Right? I
Crazy.
mean, why not, right?
For throwing a disc.
There you go. Or, I didn't want to say down in
It's
a
a
van
Frisbee.
down by the river for 10 million. No, not at all. No, I'm learning to love it. I mean, good for them. I can't do it. I've tried to do it.
It's not very easy.
It's not easy.
You're like, yeah, I can do it. No,
no.
No.
There's an
Is
art
there-
to it for sure.
they're all weighted, and
Oh yeah, they've
for
got
the wind
drivers
and
and
the-
putters and
Oh, yeah.
they got. I occasionally will flip it on. It'll be on TV, and you see those 15-year-old girls that are just
The last time they were
Dominant.
at the horse, I dove really deep into a YouTube tunnel and was watching disc golf for like hours.
oh yeah. So on our number 4 par 3, it's a par 4 for them. I think the year before last, one of the guys got a hole in one. It was on ESPN. I was like, oh,
Yeah, crazy.
look at the weeds around the basket.
Yeah.
There we go. We're on TV, and there's some broadleaf weeds around the bottom of the cup for the. It wasn't that bad, but no. So part of that whole thing for colorants is okay. If this thing takes off and something like that happens in the future, hey, you want it to look the best it can look, no
Absolutely.
matter what you're doing,
yeah.
Right.
whatever you're having out there, whether it's a wedding, disc golf, locals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On 5, that tee box that's all the way tucked back. Do you guys ever put markers back there? I just noticed it the first time when I was up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we were.
Not often.
Is there grass back there?
Yeah, there.
I haven't walked back there.
No, there is. No, there's a tee box back there.
I'll have to go back there next time.
And was it a year ago, the last 4th of July, one of the neighbors caught the palm tree on fire, so it kind of got hot.
Yeah.
And some of the grass got a little warm and burned up.
Yeah.
So,
I'll have
but
to
yeah,
go back there next time.
like, so if we have like an event or something,
Yeah.
like where the pros are playing,
Yeah.
the PGA guys, we'll put them back there.
That's deep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes it a long hole.
It definitely does.
Well, even on
and the box before that too.
even
from
on
the other
4,
side,
yeah.
Yeah, you're looking at over 200 yards.
Yeah, and it's all carry.
Right.
There's no. That's all carry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved 9 when it was 18. It's such a.
Yeah.
It's such an underrated hole. I did a list on the breakfast balls where I took 18 different holes, and like number 1 was a number 1 hole, number 2 was a number 2 hole.
He built his own golf course.
Built my own golf course,
There you
and
go.
and 9 is 9 at Wildhorse. It's
Nice.
It's just such a damn cool hole.
Yeah.
Really
That's a great
underrated.
one, for sure.
Really underrated. Yeah, anything else?
I don't. It's so interesting. I could probably talk to Darden forever. I mean, I'm good. I know you got to take off here
Yeah.
shortly.
So when would you say is going to be your primo courses in the best shape time of the year?
In general, for everybody out here, probably October 12th.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to be overseeding, and we're coming up next week to do our little practice area, and then the next week we'll do our tees and greens. And these guys up here on the hilltop, they'll shut down for a whole month.
yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
And-
you can see Lex is already brown.
Yeah, so and then when they do open, nobody's going to drive the carts on the fairways or anything like
Yeah.
that. So that's another advantage that we have down there. So I'll get James over here to Anthem. A lot of his members will come down and play while we're in the process of doing our
We're
stuff.
playing there for the first time this week, Anthem.
Oh, I love that place. Yeah,
I've never played
That's
it.
beautiful. He does a great job.
Yeah. It's a gorgeous layout.
Yeah, so enjoy it. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, but everything's going to be great.
Yeah.
I know
I'm excited.
that. Yeah. So I would say mid-October.
Yeah.
That's when everything, Shadow, Anthem, Rio, Summerlin, because they'll have the tournament coming up. So
Yeah.
they'll even
Yeah.
be ready before then. But that's traditionally from what I've heard out here from the scheduling and things like that. But one other tidbit I will tell everyone is that the price of grass seed has more than doubled.
Wow.
from last year to this year.
Wow.
Because of the farmers in Oregon and the drought
Oh, yeah.
and the issues that they've had. And
Wow.
there were some big takeovers and corporations with Scotts and Columbia Seeds merged. And so a lot of that extra seed that was there available. And that affects not just here, that affects
Everywhere.
all over south of that frost line.
Maybe that's why Stallion just made that announcement the other day.
Maybe so. Yeah. Could have been.
Huh.
Yeah.
How is that going to affect your annual budget? I mean, is that going to put a dent where it shouldn't have been?
Oh, most likely. No doubt. Even for us. I mean, so I get maybe 100 bags of ryegrass, and then the Poa trivialis for the greens has even gone up. But, I mean, and I don't know but just say someone spent, whatever they spent, 100,000, say it was Rio. Now it's 200.
Yeah.
But, or just that's an example, or even Shadow Creek. I mean, you're looking at guys who are like, so for me, it puts a dent in the budget, but you're looking at 9, 10, 11, 12,000 instead of 100, 200.
Yeah.
So the more they do, the more it affects them for sure.
So I know you've told me, right? But compared to other courses, what is your budget compared to other courses percentage wise? If they spend $100,000, what do you get for your budget?
I would say for grass seed or just
in general, grass, whatever.
Let's just take fertilizers and chemicals. If I get 38, they're probably getting 65, 75.
So you're getting half, basically.
For certain line items,
Yeah.
for sure. And then water, it's even less than that. So, like, maybe somebody spends $800,000. We might spend, I know what we spend. We spend about $162,000.
So that's crazy. And
And
that's what people
wild.
need to know, because what you're doing out there is amazing with what you
Right.
have and the resources you have.
Yeah. And
That's
then,
awesome.
I mean, labor's a whole nother,
That too, yeah.
and a whole nother deal. So, but it's good. Everything's going great, and I'm blessed to be there and happy to be here in town.
Well, we're
happy to
glad
have you,
you're out
man.
here, man, because
Yeah.
that course it's
It's
got a great
special.
history. It's special. You're doing wonderful things out there, and I know I love going out there. I give it shit all the time just
He
because.
really does all the time. And I always defend it. It's an asshole.
And I told him, I said, I played it back when it was, I tell people, when we used to go play, hey, you're going to Wildhorse. Like, ooh, you're going to Wildhorse. Ooh,
Right,
ooh.
yeah.
This Showboat Country Club. Ooh,
Yeah.
It was like the premier place in town. I mean, Green Valley didn't exist. There was the golf course on the top of the hill. Wow. It was like, you get to go out there. Ooh, so I seen it in those.
Yeah.
And then compared to, the situation how much grass have they removed there?
I think they took out maybe 40 or 50 acres. I have to look back in the records.
God, that's
but
crazy.
right. So, and then you get the water rebates, but then what do you do with that money for the next 20 years? And then if it changes hands, like ownerships and things like that, now you still have to have people maintain those areas where you can't run a mower over anymore.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Goat Hill Park in San Diego, Oceanside?
No, I haven't been there. Been to Del Mar Country Club.
Goat Hill has like this surfer, like laid back vibe, and that's like, it's so fun. And I had a blast out there. It was the first place I took my son. I mean, he was 6 months old, but that's the first course he's been on, and it's just
Nice.
like this.
But Wildhorse has that vibe.
It has that vibe to me, like the shack, like right there at the turn, and it's just one of my favorite places. Like Wildhorse at 5:30 or 6 in the morning is like one of my favorite places in town.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you got to be out there before the sun comes up so you don't hit balls and blind yourself.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much for coming up
thank
the
you
hill.
guys.
We
Yeah.
appreciate it. This
No.
was a lot of fun. Everybody, what's your Instagram handle so people can follow you? So they
At Darden 73.
Darden's Garden.
Darden's Gardens.
Darden's Gardens.
He's the guy to check up to see how Wildhorse is looking. Check his post. That's what I was doing before I talked to you. I was like, is Wildhorse looking good? I'll go
Man,
there.
it's looking really good. So congrats.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it, and I appreciate what you guys do for the golf business. We all need more people like you guys.
Oh,
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Yeah, that's all I got. All
Nice one.
right. Get out there and chase some daylight. Dang it.
Later.
And do it at Wildhorse.